Okay, so let's continue this on and pick up where we're at. And we're going to keep adding in some highlights, and we'll add some shadows as well. So I would like to do that. Oh, there we go. I don't know why I wouldn't grab it. Alright, so let's add a few more spots, but I'm going to come down in color. This. I'm just going to softly lay this in your brush. I want these to kind of fade a little bit and give just that. I don't want the crisp snow kind of feel to it. I just want it to be more kind of a highlight. Maybe something like that. That was weird. Using the brackets to lower the size of that. And just kind of keep laying in some softer highlights. Kind of starts pulling all of this together. Like that. Notice I just kind of keep moving this around, and you can see more and more how this just is a time saver to use a stencil, because I can go in and paint all those, but if I use my stencil and just kind of move it around here and there, I can get a lot more stuff covered and done at a time. And for me, this is a great way to kind of keep interest in what I'm painting. Because I am able to move it around more and more. Because my ADHD, if I take too long in one area, I can lose interest fairly quickly. Alright, so now that we've gotten a bunch of those in there, and maybe just before I move on, I want to add just a little bit more in here, kind of soften some of that. I think what I would like to do is add a little bit of darkness to it. I really like how this area right here contrasts, and it gets that stark pop that you can kind of see right here as well. So I'd like to do that a little bit more. So I'm going to grab that with Alt. I'm going to rotate this ever so slightly. I think some of these I'm going to come in, airbrush to it with varying degrees of pressure. So I can get that really good kind of pop to it. And again, because I've turned off the lock ratio and can rotate it and squish it around, it gives me the option to really make this stencil do 1,000 different things. Because I'm using the airbrush, I can just softly put it in there. Like so. So just Control Z to undo it, ever so. And this is where it helps to have another window open. Like I've got my preview window open on another monitor, so that way I can take a look and really kind of see if I like how it looks from a distance. So if I always get that stepped back kind of look to it, where I can go back from the canvas to see, do I like how that looks? Which is important, to always step back from your canvas. Either physically, if you're painting traditional, or zooming out if you're painting digitally. I've seen a lot of different artists, they use the navigation window as their thumbnail. So like the navigator, like they'll have that enlarged. I just like to keep a preview window open on another monitor because, one, it lets me see closer to what my printing will look like if I make prints of something. Two, it lets me be zoomed out. Into it. I'm actually going to bring some of this blue up here in a second. I want these to kind of be so... I want it to be dynamic and have that separation, but I don't want it to be, you know, like it's cut out in front of it, I guess is what I'm saying. I don't want that. But see how by turning this and twisting it, and softening it, you can get some really interesting effects. Okay, so I'm going to grab some of this blue. And I'm just going to lighter brush in over some of these areas. Give it just a hint of that blue. Okay, not just a hint of it. And that's going to help pull these together so they look like fade into one another. This right here, this little bit right there is too dark. So let's go back in and soften that. You can just grab some of the surrounding color, back just a little bit. The same for this guy right here. So now let's kind of zoom out a little bit so we can see it. Okay, I think that is starting to pull it all together really well. Now what I want to do is I'm going to jump down here because these are all way up here. I don't have to worry about interacting with this stuff. So I'm going to jump down here so I'm behind all of that. And I'm going to go ahead and make another layer. I'm going to expand that. Move it around, zoom back in. And I want to add some shadow highlights, so how's that for an interesting... But what I want to do is take some of this right here, just the slightest more above it, and then add in just the slightest of broken up highlights. That's going to give the feeling of some reflected light kind of hitting here and there. Doesn't have to be much. Just a little bit. Something like that. As you can see, it's just a real soft, subtle kind of texture that it's giving it. Okay, so now what I want to do is I'm going to grab this darker color and I want to add a few of these into the side of it. Kind of helps, again, carry across that feel of rocks and shadows. And you'll notice I'm putting a lot of these on the kind of left side. And sometimes it's very, very subtle, like that was. You can barely see it. It's there, but you can barely see it. But I'm putting these kind of on the left side, whereas the highlights were a little bit more to the right side. And just kind of softening them. Something. Okay. And that gives us a little bit more of that feel of it. Just kind of being some nice rocks off in the distance. This needs to be broken up just ever so slightly. And the same with this, like so. I think the one last thing I would like to do is come up here, and in this I want to put just a slight bit of this shadow coming around these guys. Something kind of. Okay, so let's get rid of that stencil. Let's zoom this back out and kind of see what we've got here. So we've got the nice highlights. We've got some grasses and reflection and stuff like that. So we need to come back down to the reflection real quick to here. Let's grab just a little bit of this. And so ever so soft. Let's put that on 3 actually. So ever so soft. And just kind of add a little bit of that color down like so. And then switch to 4. And just smear it, keeping those verticals. Helps sell the reflection. Like so. Okay. And I think that really is giving us that feel of this being across, you know, sun's rising kind of thing. And the only thing I want to do is maybe back here is add some more definition to the trees. So, this layer right here, back up and grab tree line. I have a couple different other ones, but this one for right now. So all I want to do here is just kind of looking at just the top of the stencil. Okay, I'm going to grab a little bit of this. I'm on 2. I just want to do a bit of a definition to some of these trees. You can see it's still just, you know, abstract shapes. That's fine. That's all I want. Because this is so far enough back that you're not going to really see much in the way of anything else. Now I'm going to do, I think I'll turn off the lock size ratio so I can use the same stencil again and again, but contort it and give it some different look. And I can the other side of it, because that's different stencils together. I just like it that way so I can do exactly what I just did of flipping it around. It's giving me some nice gaps, some negative space. And by negative space, I mean like this little cutout of blue behind it. It just kind of helps break up. Backspace. Zoom out. Whoops. I'm sorry. Hit my microphone there. So now, as you can see, we've got a little bit of break up to that background back there. Now, that does pull it forward. You notice how it looks a little bit closer now. So that brings it forward because we've got more detail in it. So you got to decide, do you want that or not? If you don't, then add smaller, you know, details and stuff like that, or add less details. And that'll help keep it pushed back more. Now, one of the other things I want to do is come back up to the sky, or back down to the sky, whatever. I'm going to grab my airbrush. I'm going to select just a little bit of this kind of yellowish color. Actually, I think I'm going to go with a little bit of this peachish color. Go a little bit lighter, less opacity. So right about 10. And add in just a hint of that color off in the background, and I'm going to add another layer, and on this I'm going to change it to overlay, and some of that, go a little bit lighter, and then some of that down here. And then a little bit of this blue. Go really light on that. There we go. Because I really want to bring that blue out. I think that makes it pop. So that gives us that really nice blue sky, a little bit of haze of clouds in the background. Now, one other thing I may want to try here real quick on the sky is maybe adding in some wispy clouds. Flat dry. And just going to kind of bring these across. I'm going to switch to 4. Taking that same brush and just kind of smearing it around. Go a little bit bigger. Just kind of soften it. subtle. Just to kind of break up some of that blue. Nice and soft. So I think that gives us kind of an interesting look. Now, some of the final touches can also be coming down here and selecting like this green, and then coming back up here and keeping it in that same area. We're just going to come over to maybe come up just a little bit, maybe a little too dark. I want to come up just slightly. Some reds. I'm going to just go to spat, and I'm just touching, and my water is down to 0. Okay, control click. Add a little bit more, a lot more red. Hit that here and there. And we're to some of the blue. Keep doing that. We've got a little bit of color coming in here. Control D. Gives us just a little bit of interest in color. You know, didn't mean to touch that. Let's see how that gives us an interest kind of look. Now, if there's some of these, like I don't really care for all of this up here, so I'm just going to do E, eraser, and get rid of some of that. By going with, starting with the green and then selecting, it keeps it in the same value area. Added more hue, some more color, but we kept it in the same value area. Now we can do some of the same back here in the back. Like for example, if we wanted to, I was going to use the ink, but we'll just use this. Let's change the spatter. And let's bring that down. And just a little bit of blue here and there. All I'm doing is tapping that same red. Again, if I don't like some of it, just kind of randomly erase it. And that just starts kind of tying it together and giving a little bit more interest. So there's a lot more you could do here. Like for example, if you wanted to add in some more water, you could do that. Fairly simple by just going to a brush and coming up on one of these other layers, like this one, with the reflections. And you could add in just, well, it helps to actually change. Grab a little bit of this. And suddenly, you've got the feel of extra water here. Now one thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to select this layer. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. So I've got some of this here and there. And I'm going to go with a much brighter white airbrush. Now I've got that set to just 19, just an arbitrary number, because I want to build this up a little bit. So I've got a little bit more of reflection. Don't want it too much because I don't want it to pop too much. I just want it to be a little bit more distinct. Okay. So that gives me that. And then the only other stuff I might say is this is where you could add some, like for example, if you wanted to put some animals like maybe ducks or something like there, then you can use those stencils. I do really like putting birds flying around in these. I think it just adds a little something. So I'm going to do this. I think this can give us a nice little interesting pop. So I'm going to border this. And what I'm going to do is this right here. These are the guys I'm going to paint. So I've still got my airbrush. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to switch. I'm going to go to Knife Smooth, and I'm going to bring that way down. And to just kind of add this pop of those guys flying across. And a little bit on these, but then I want to bring them so they're still here, and they still stand out, but it's really soft. Like so. And I can even grab a little bit of that airbrush. But I want there to be that very distinct, they're hitting into the shadow kind of thing. Let's add a few closer. And just kind of soft. So, backspace, get rid of that. Point to scroll back. So see how that, I mean, it's just a soft, subtle thing, but it really does a lot, I think. Okay. So I think I'm going to call this done, guys. It is a lot of different techniques and stuff that you can do here, but it's overall not really difficult. You just kind of start with your general layout and design, and then just start building up colors from there. You'll notice how I started with this color palette, and then just started laying it out, and then going darker, and then I would select a color and go a little bit darker on the hue, on the value, a little bit lighter on the value here and there. Use some stencils to save some time. Again, if you don't have my stencils, you don't have to use them. There are lifetime updates on this. This is basically from another program. You'll see where I have Art Rage stencils, and those can be imported in here. The brushes cannot, but the stencils can, and you can get lifetime updates on those and everything too. But anyway, so you can just save yourself some time with the stencils and use them that way. But you can come in with the airbrush and paint it. But if you're just not confident in your drawing skills or your painting skills yet, or you want to save time like I do, then there you go. Try it that way. But I hope you got a lot out of this, playing around with some of the values, some of the complementary colors of like our bluish colors and our orangish colors and our greens and some of our reds and oranges, and really getting them to pop off of each other and kind of play around. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, or anything at all, just let me know. Okay. But I've enjoyed doing this one, and I hope you have too. If you're not already, please make sure to subscribe, leave a comment, and share it with others. Okay. Thanks so much, and check us out on Patreon.